This week on Outdoor Oklahoma, black bear numbers are on the rise in the Sooner State. We visit with bear biologists and sit down with hunting enthusiast and fellow outdoorsman, Oklahoma Governor Kevin Stitt, right now on Outdoor Oklahoma.
Well, hello and welcome to Outdoor Oklahoma. I'm Todd Craighead. Historically, Oklahoma was home to a great number of black bears. And just like a lot of species across the country, their numbers were decimated nearly to the point of extinction over 100 years ago. But thanks to conservation and management efforts, black bear numbers are once again on the rise, including right here in Oklahoma. In fact, they're doing so well that we've had an open season for bears in Oklahoma since 2009. Today, we're going to visit with researchers about the important work they're doing. But first, we had a special opportunity recently to sit down with avid outdoorsman, Oklahoma Governor Kevin Stitt, and visit about his heritage and his passion for Oklahoma's outdoors.
So as a kid, I grew up in Norman, and my dad's hobby was quail hunting. And so we always had some English pointers, and I loved going with my dad, my brothers, and my uncles, and we would always go to western Oklahoma and do quail hunting, and Dad would walk me till I could hardly walk. He'd have to carry me back to the truck. So those are fond memories, loved quail hunting. And then when I was about 16, I got into deer hunting, loved deer hunting, bought my first bow. There in college, used to go to Colorado, go elk hunting a little bit. Now I'm excited. We've got an elk population in Oklahoma. I've got 6 children, three boys, 3 girls. It's so fun to just kind of hang out. Just like every father, you want to find things that you can do with your children. And so it's exciting. Now my 9-year-old's begging me to take him hunting, and I bought him a single shot 22. And so now it's time to teach him to shoot that and go from there. And then I've got a 5-year-old boy that's coming up, and hopefully he'll enjoy it as well. You know, part of hunting and fishing is not only hanging out with your friends and the camaraderie that's developed around deer camp or you know, just getting away from the city. Even if you don't harvest an animal, it's the fun is the experience. And just the time that you get to hang out away from, you know, the normal day-to-day of your job is just really enjoyable for me. And then being out in nature, it just allows everybody to unwind and relax, and you get to experience God's creation. The stars, I mean, last night I was just in awe looking up at the stars. We saw this morning just the light coming through the pine trees and kind of the fog as the sun was coming up. And those things are just fantastic, and I just want more people to experience that. And we know that, it's just who we are as Oklahomans. We love the outdoors, and I'm just trying to showcase that, lend my support to everything outdoors. Being a top 10 state is our aspirational goal. That is our beacon. That's where we're headed. And as the governor or the chief executive of the state, when I lay out that vision, what that does is it starts giving everybody a roadmap and a game plan. And so all my different agency heads, whether it's wildlife or tourism or commerce or transportation, they now start coming to me saying, Governor, if we're going to be top 10 in road conditions and pavement conditions and bridge conditions, here's what we've got to do. And that's what I love, because now they're comparing to other states, and we're saying, hey, we're 28th now. The governor wants to be top 10. Here's where we have to improve. And so that's my job, is to hire the right people, challenge them, push them in that direction, because we have a fantastic state. And I like to remind everybody that Oklahoma is a step above every other state. We've got so many different areas, different wildlife, habitats. It's just a fantastic state. Just part of my plan to be top 10 in everything we do. We certainly are going to be top 10 in wildlife. Oklahomans, come enjoy our great outdoors. We've got fantastic hunting, fishing, hiking, wonderful activities to do all over our great state. So come join me, let's get active, and let's go experience our great state together.
We're fortunate to have a governor with such a strong heritage and commitment to the outdoors. Up next, extensive bear research began in Oklahoma in 2001. And a crucial part of that research is annually monitoring and collecting data on newborn cubs. We're now going to learn why and how this is so important as we follow along with researchers visiting a winter den site.
We're here in southeast Oklahoma, beautiful place in LaFleur County, kind of the center of our basic bear population. I photographed my first bear in the Ouachitas in 1974. Back then, as nobody would believe you if you said there were bears in southeast Oklahoma. People just flat didn't believe you.
Early settlers, the bears were originally in Oklahoma, and a native species here in the eastern part of the state in the mountainous region. And in the early 1900s, with the settlers moving in, habitat loss and overhunting, they were nearly extirpated in the region. So in the early 50s and 60s, Arkansas Game and Fish reintroduced bears over in the Ouachitas and Ozarks of Arkansas. And those reintroductions were so successful that the bears started migrating west as those populations grew.
Today, black bears can be found throughout eastern Oklahoma, with the densest populations in the southeast, primarily in LaFleur County. Researchers estimate our current population to be between 1,500 and 2,000 bears, and the population has been growing at a rate of approximately 4% each year.
In the early 2000s, Oklahoma Department of Wildlife realized that, okay, we're getting more bears over here. We really need to learn more about this species and see what we need to do to manage them. So we began our original research in 2001.
Sarah Bell's lighter now, but Sarah Bell showed up on my porch one evening back in the early 2000s. I think it may have been 01. And we had it all planned out that, you know, she was going to be our research dude to come down here and we're going to get started.
So I had been a part of research in Alabama and Florida with black bears, and then had the opportunity to move out to Oklahoma to be a part of the very first black bear research here. And that was quite an experience to get to move in and learn a new study area and develop new trap lines and be a part of the launch of new research here with black bears.
She's done great research and great work with the bears on figuring out how many, a good population estimate, a good basis for us to start with. And since that early research, we've just pretty much had some sort of research going on ever since. Between the southeast and the northeast, Sarah has been the lead person in most of that.
A lot has changed since we began doing research in the early 2000s, technology-wise, but really our annual field work schedule is pretty much the same these days. We used to have callers that strictly relied on a VHF signal, and each caller has its own frequency, and we had to manually get out and track and actually identify where those locations were. Now we're extremely fortunate that we've actually got satellite or GPS callers. So on top of being able to track them manually, we have the opportunity to gather much more data from those callers. So our callers are now taking 2 or 3 locations per day, whereas we used to be able to get 2 or 3 per week. So what we're looking at here is an example of about a year's worth of location information from one female bear. In this particular map, to get a feel for the area that you're looking at, this is approximately 3.5 miles from the northernmost point to the southernmost, and once again, roughly 4 miles east-west. And the locations and her habitat use is strictly driven by the resources available. So it's going to be a smaller area if she's able to get all of those resources she needs in a smaller area, and larger if she has to travel a lot more to get use of those resources.
We put some collars on some males and found out that, you know, a big male bear that lives in Daisy will actually come all the way back to LaFleur County to do his breeding in June and July, and then take off and go back. That's some neat information to know that the research kids and the collars give us.
So what we're looking at is starting in May. As soon as we finish up with classes at OSU, we're going to get into the field and we're going to set our trap lines. Actually, before that, we've already pre-baited all of those first trap lines to try to start letting the bears know we're coming back in the area. And then we trap from May through August every year, and we'll have 2 trap lines in the southeast and 1 trap line in the northeast. And then we wrap up in August. Fall, we monitor those collars from a distance. If there's ever any need for us to get out and work on any particular bear that's collared, then we get out there and do so. But otherwise, the fall, we just monitor from a distance with our GPS collars. And then in January, we'll start locating the dens of collared bears. So we locate the dens in January, and then generally start working them and work them in February and March. Every den site, you know, we've already figured out that the female is in the spot that we're heading to. We start off with a sedation team, and everybody hikes in being as quiet as possible. We get into within a few hundred yards. And at that point, we prepare our sedation drugs and the jab stick. Then we slip in with just 2 or 3 people and try to sedate the female. And if all goes well, within 15 to 30 minutes, then she is sedated and we can get in, remove the cubs, and at that point we begin our workups. These bears really choose quite a diverse type of den site. You know, you want to think that a den is going to be a big cave or a big hollowed out log or something like that. And indeed, sometimes they are caves or crevices or hollowed out trees, and those are nifty little spaces. But in fact, we've had them quite frequently den just in what we call ground nests, and they literally are like a huge bird nest. And they find these little, it's almost like a little microclimate, and they find a spot where they feel like they can have a good view of their surroundings and be safe, and somehow they're blocked from the wind, and they just protect those cubs from the elements from above and keep everybody warm that way. So we've had all kinds of interesting spaces. They will do ground excavations where they dig out big holes in the ground, but those ground nests are really the most phenomenal to me. We've had quite a few that are quite successful at raising cubs just from those big nests.
Going into bear dens and working with bears and having the opportunity to hold cubs and weigh and measure cubs, and that whole part of the job is just something that you can't explain. And as a lot of our folks in the agency that get to go have had the opportunity to do this will tell you that's probably one of the highlights of anybody's career, is the opportunity to go do that.
4, Jeff.
Awesome. 4. Is that the first time ever? 4? Looks healthy. Courtney says she's going to find 4. This is awesome. You have 4 blankets, you want my coat?
I've got 4.
Her collar's off of her. It's in there.
That's convenient.
Thank goodness she dropped it in the bin. That's Harney.
One black one in there. Looks like.
Got a little Velcro.
The very exciting thing about the particular den visit is the fact that this is our first recorded case of a litter of 4 in Oklahoma. We typically have 2 and we get very excited with 3, but this was our very first quads, so we're pretty excited about that. An important part about the work that we're doing with these cubs is the fact that this is the very first time that they've ever been away from their mother. And at that time of year, because of that situation, they actually rely on their mothers to keep them warm. They cannot thermoregulate on their own. So when we have them away from their mothers, we use fleece blankets, we call them cub pockets, and we use those blankets and our jackets and our body warmth to keep them warm. So we take great care in the impact that we have at every den site that we visit. Our first goal is to be concerned with the welfare of the bears that we're dealing with. At the same time, it's really important for us to be able to share this opportunity to educate the public and share the reason for us doing this kind of research. And it's really hard to grasp why we're doing this kind of work if you don't actually have firsthand experience. Our goal is to share with folks who might be able to then take that experience and do something good for wildlife in the future, whether it be a legislator that might be able to help us with bills in the future, or a wildlife department employee who can then take that experience and share it with the public and let them know that this is why we're doing what we're doing. So while we're sharing that experience, we also take great care in limiting the numbers of people that we bring in with us. And certain sites we don't bring anybody because it's too sensitive. Other sites are a little bit more hardy, and so we have the opportunity to share the experience with a few more folks.
Write down the information. All right. And then we'll wipe it off with alcohol before we put it in. So we'll get.
With the cubs, we collect important information. We take measurements. We give them a pit tag, which is our way of actually marking those individuals and in case we ever get our hands on them again. And we collect hair samples from those little guys in case we ever want to do genetic work in the future. And the most important thing is that we're marking how many females and male cubs that she's having. Of course, we're focused on the females. We want more female recruitment for the population. So the female, we check her vital signs, of course, monitor those throughout the entire time. We change out her collar or just readjust it, whichever is necessary.
I got you.
Just don't want to get that crap. I know if I lay it down, it'll be everywhere.
Yeah.
Part of our monitoring the female and checking the collar, we also check all of the markings that we would have put on her during our trapping session. So we give them lip tattoos that have numbers that correspond with their ear tags. And so if they're missing their ear tags, then we'll give them new ear tags. If their tattoo is unreadable, then we'll give them new tattoos. And if we have to give them new ear tags, then we'll also give them a new tattoo corresponding. And then we make notes of all of their markings so that in the future, if we get our hands on them again, we know which bear it is. So we make sure all of the markings are up to date and make sure that all the tattoos are readable. Our females are sedated for anywhere from 2 to 4 hours. During den season, it takes them longer to come out of the sedation at that point because their metabolisms are much slower. So while we still back away and give her space to recover, we stay until we are seeing good signs of her starting to come out of that sedation to make sure that she and those cubs are safe until she's ready to be the protector again. And the other thing that we do is we deploy a couple of game cameras on that den site so that we know exactly what's happened once we leave, and when we come back then we can check in on her.
As bear numbers increase, your opportunity to encounter one personally increases as well. So here's our own Jeff Ford with some helpful information on living in and visiting Oklahoma's bear country.
I work with black bear. We have the highest and the densest population of black bear on the Ouachita National Forest in Oklahoma. So I'm naturally the one who's called when there is what some people think is a problem with a black bear. But just say that you've had a bear around and you've took precautions and the bear is still there. Well, then we will, with the permission of the landowner, come and set a trap. A culvert trap, it's a live trap, doesn't harm the bear at all. We'll try to catch the bear. We succeed in catching the bear about 13 or 14% of the time. A lot of times, the bear's only there for a few days and they move on, and sometimes they'll just go all around the trap and they won't go in. But if we catch the bear, well then we take it and we work it up. We put ear tags in it, mark it as a bear that's been a problem. We'll take a lot of measurements just for the data, the weight, blood samples, hair samples. We pull a tooth, we use that send it to a lab and have the bear aged. And then we'll take it as far away as we can and release it. Almost everyone who lives in this part of the country loves the outdoors. And they love seeing wildlife. And they put feeders up to watch wildlife, deer, turkey, raccoons, whatever. And if you do get a bear to come up, just take the food away for a little while and let the bear move on. Don't approach the bear. I wouldn't suggest going out and throwing sticks at it or shooting up in the air. And if you're camping, never take food inside of your tent. If you're like in a primitive campground, always leave your food outdoors, away from where you're sleeping. And if you have a cabin, you're cooking on the inside and everything, a bear may come up, but if you're not, don't go to throwing them food so you can get pictures. That's the worst thing you can do, and of the worst problems that we've had occur has been from that very thing. And if you're hiking and you come upon a bear, just back away from it. Don't turn around and run. They've said in some cases that could cause a bear to chase you because they're a predator, and the prey animals that they're after are always running. But just back away from the bear and get to where you feel like it's a safe distance from the bear, and then move on. The thing to do is if you're coming to southeast Oklahoma or northeast and you're going to be at one of our beautiful WMAs or state parks, read up on what kind of wildlife you may encounter there. And another thing to do is to let someone know if you're going to be hiking where you're going and how long you're going to be gone.
Special thanks to Sarah and her team for allowing us to tag along on their research trip. And thanks as well to Governor Stitt for making the time to sit down with us. If you've enjoyed the stories in today's episode, we bet you'd also enjoy our companion publication, Outdoor Oklahoma Magazine. Annual subscriptions are only $10. You can get them online or through our new Go Outdoors app. Thanks for bearing with us today. For all of us at your Wildlife Department, I'm Todd Craighead. We'll see you right back here next time on Outdoor Oklahoma.